let's talk about how humans communicate, and interestingly, how humans communicate. Actually, this model came from how machines communicate, but it turns out it applies really well to humans as well. This was a communication model developed in the 1950s. You may have seen this before. I've heard it called the basic communication model. I actually found out that a guy, Schramm, invented this one. And it's kind of a crowded chart, but this is really a useful tool for understanding how people communicate with each other. So we have on, if my pointer worked, I would point. Is it the left or the right-hand side? I can't tell. It's on the left-hand side. That side is the sender. Sender's in the, it's on, yeah, sender's on the left-hand side. I knew that. I'm on my left or my right, and I'm facing front to back. So we have the sender, and I want to communicate with you. We do not communicate telepathically yet. So in order for me to communicate with you, I have to take what's going on inside my head and encode it. And how do I encode it? I use generally the English language, words that only I can understand, because sesquipedalianism is important. That's just a big word. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And then I have to put it into some form that can be communicated. Then I have to send the message to you, and then you as the receiver have to decode the message. What the heck was he saying? And based on what you think you thought I said, you have an understanding of the message, and based on your understanding of the message, you're going to respond either appropriately or inappropriately, and then based on your response, I will get some idea as to whether or not you received the message correctly. There's a couple of issues going on in here. I have this big circles, the sender's field of experience and the receiver's field of experience. And this is recognizing that what we think, what we understand, how we interpret things. Remember, we talked about selective hypothesis testing, where we tend to believe what we already know. So I have a level of experience, and you have a level of experience, and based on my level of experience, I'm saying words that may have meaning to me and don't have meaning to you. There's a wonderful experiment, I'm going to try this here, that illustrates the difference in field of experience. I call this the tapping experiment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap a song. And I want you to tell me what the song is that I am tapping. Okay, ready? What song was that?
Happy Birthday.
Happy Birthday. Any other thoughts? Just somebody had the nerve to say something, and this evil, tricky professor. No, it wasn't. It was the Star Spangled Banner. By the dawn early light. So what's happening is my field of experience, when I'm tapping that, I've got the flag flying, and I'm hearing the band, and the trumpet's blaring, and the soprano's way out of her range, you know. And what you guys are hearing is, because you have nothing, no basis of experience. So the point is, especially from an education standpoint, when I say things, I totally understand what I say, and you may not. Again, in communication, you have your field of experience, and another person has their field of experience, and they're going to interpret both what you say and what they receive based on what they already know. And then the last thing I have over there is this amazing graphic. I have this thing called noise. And noise is not just sound that interferes with the transmission of sound. Noise is anything that interferes with your ability to either transmit or receive the message. For example, if the person next to you hasn't bathed recently, and you're kind of Okay, that's interfering with your ability to hear what's going on. That's noise. If there's something going on in the other room, if I got something really cool going on my phone and another something really cool going on my laptop, I'm sorry, what was that you said? That's also noise. But the idea is noise is just simply something that happens when that stops you from understanding or transmitting the message. Okay. And I already said all of this, but I probably should have done it slide by slide. So at coding, we do not communicate telepathically. We need to encode the message, and the tools that we use to encode the message are called cues. And there are different kinds of cues, multiple cues. So when I'm talking in this room, what cues am I using? We already talked about the English language. What other cues am I using? Visuals, yes, visuals. What other cues am I using? Say again. Body language. What other cues am I using? By the way, this is a really powerful cue, very important in sales. The long pause. Silence is, again, a way of communicating. All of these different ways that are ways of communicating information, not just the words. And there's a school of thought that says it's the nonverbal communication is far more expressive and far more informative than the verbal communication because our bodies don't lie. And then we talked about field of experience. And then you have to interpret the message. You ever played that game Telephone? Where you sit in a circle and somebody starts a message and then you pass it, whisper ear to ear, and by the time it gets around the circle, it's totally incomprehensible from when it started. Partly because of people having trouble hearing, and partly because some smart person always changes it on purpose. And then you get the feedback and la-di-da-di-da. So transmission. In order for me to communicate with you, there needs to be a way for me to send the encoded signal from me to you. What is the medium that I'm using right now to send the encoded signals from me to you? Face-to-face, but what's the transmission medium? Voice? What's the transmission medium? So I'm using the air modulation, the airwaves. That is, so when I speak, it sets modulation going in the airwaves, and that impinges on your ears, and your ears get that bouncing back and forth and sends it to your brain. Say there's something bouncing on our heads, and the brain says, oh yeah, that's a marketing lecture, pay attention. And there's also the sight is I've got the light waves that are coming on me and reflecting off of me and bouncing onto you, and based on what your eyes interpret, your brain says what's going on. If you're viewing online, all of this stuff is being captured and digitized by a camera in the back of the room, and that's turned into little electronical impulses that are going to your machine, and your machine's going to translate those mechanical impulses into vibrations in the air and to changes in the light so that you can understand what's going on. But again, different media, different modes of transportation have different ability to carry cues, and we call that channel richness. So the sparsest medium generally is considered to be print. What kind of cues can we encode in print? Say again?
Text and pictures.
I can do text and pictures. I can do the graphic layout. I can do italics. I can do boldface. I can do maybe color in print. But that's about it. Face-to-face, clearly the richest channel because I've got all of this stuff going on. Television, and this is actually, the world is changing right now. Let's not call that television, let's call that video. Video is kind of the baseline medium for communicating emotion. It's a fairly rich medium. It's got sight, sound, motion, and you can get a lot of information through there. And then when you go fully online, you get also interactivity, which is the ability for the audience to respond and feedback, which is a whole another level of richness that comes very close to face-to-face. Really the only thing that you can't do on a computer that you can do in person is smell, yet. And there have been experiments with trying to get little smell receivers and little smell transmitters on your computer, because odor is a really powerful, do we talk about this in retailing? It's just a very powerful motivator because it impacts the limbic system directly, and that's the emotional part of our brain, and it bypasses the cognitive part of our brain. Okay, talked about that. The last thing. Most business communication is intended to persuade, to get somebody to do something that you want them to do. I have just learned that the term that people are using in business today is called conversion. That should be a vocabulary word. Conversion is when you get somebody to do what you want them to do in response to a marketing message. And it's conversion. Obviously, if you buy my product, that's a conversion. But there are other levels of conversion. Did you click on my ad? That's a level of conversion. If you clicked on the ad, did you look at something on the website? That would be another level of conversion. But in order to get people to convert, you have to use this model. And this model is all persuasive communication. There are no exceptions. It's the AIDA model, has nothing to do with Puccini's opera. Has everything to do with attention, interest, desire, action. Before I can get you to do anything, I have to get your attention, right, if you're not paying attention. This is going to be on the final. Got your attention. Interest, it could be extra credit. No, I've got your interest, and then I've got to make you want to do it. If you do it right, you won't have to take the final at all. All you have to do is show up every day. So again, attention, interest, desire, action, and you have to have the call to action. The worst thing you can do is to get somebody all excited. Wow, this is a great idea. What do I have to do to get a free pass on the final? So tell them what to do. Interest, anyways.